Yo, what up, y'all? Welcome back. OTBOT. Hour number 3 now on CST. Spread the good word, 7 to 10 a.m. And again, thank you to everybody who's been hanging out in chat all morning at youtube.com/1045 ESPN. It's a lot of fun hanging out with y'all every single day. We got some Saints talk coming up this hour. It's every Tuesday. We got Nick Underhill on at 9:30. And he's got some great stuff in New Orleans football. But there's also, I want to talk the Saints pick at 28. Because I think there's an interesting potential here where the Saints need a cornerback, but the names that they would maybe value as being worth it at 28, I think they're going to get caught in a bit of an awkward no man's land where maybe those cornerbacks will be off the board and then guys that are more second-round talents will be the ones available. And the reason why I say this is because Nick Underhill ran 100 draft simulations with the sole purpose being evaluating corners. So this was not, we'll get to a different Larry Holder draft simulation next where he just let the computer run and pick whatever they wanted. And that's really interesting too. But this was Nick running simulations, looking at the big corner names and seeing, okay, right, how did they fall in this in this algorithm? Of course, J.C. Horn and Patrick Surtain are viewed as 1 and 2, right?
Yeah.
Like they're going to be off the board no matter what. And sure enough, in these simulations, J.C. Horn's highest drafted position was 7. His lowest drafted position was 15. He never made it to pick 28 one time.
No.
Patrick Surtain, same deal. Highest position 9, lowest 17. Never made it to 28 one time. Now, the names, if you're a Saints fan that you've probably been hearing, are not Surtain or Horn for that reason. It's more been Greg Newsom. Who did you talk about Greg Newsom the other day?
Yeah, we did, I think, last week.
I think he's from Northwestern.
Yes.
He doesn't have a ton of playing time, but people love his kind of upside and what he did when he played.
But 5'11" corner, so a little bit shorter.
A little bit shorter.
Yeah.
Especially considering we talked about recently how the Saints are, they love the prototype approach, where on top of game film, they then want to separate guys between, okay, who most fits the NFL prototype. And right now for cornerback, after the Legion of Boom revolution of the last decade, that is a little small. It wouldn't have been a while ago, but it is a little small now. But Newsom, I don't know if he's going to make it to 28, man. In these 100 simulations, only 4 times was he available for the Saints to select. I think his highest draft position was 14, and in fact, the lowest, he never made it in the 100 drafts. He never made it past 28. It looks like he's going on the board kind of late teens, early 20s.
So I'm going to assume, like, if you look at, if the Saints stay put, you're looking at Sonny Samuel Jr., Kelvin Joseph, Elijah Molden, maybe out of Washington.
So those are, okay, yes, so those are the other names. But what's interesting is the last name that you would consider a consensus first rounder would be Caleb Farley. And now well, actually, he's not consensus because the algorithm didn't know quite what to make out of him.
I think Caleb Farley's gone before Newsom.
Well, and then so that's the crazy thing about Farley is those opinions are kind of, he has the widest gap. Yeah. And even in this algorithm, highest draft position was 20, lowest drafted position was 45. He was available at 28 70 times. That probably feels a bit heavy from what you're saying, but certainly if Farley's on there, that feels like a realistic choice.
If he's there 28, you pull your hamstring running the card up there.
Okay, so it's a guaranteed pick with a bullet, Caleb
I think
Farley.
He's a teens type of player, and if you can get him at 28, he's 6'2", he's long. There's a lot to like there. It'd be hard for me not to select him there.
Okay, so already
even if he's close.
What if you had Newsom and Farley somehow? Which you wouldn't, but just if push came to shove and you had to choose between the
Farley.
Two. Okay. So already now we've maybe zeroed in on what the prime name should be. But let's say Farley is off the board. That's where it gets interesting. Because you mentioned Asante Samuel Jr., Kelvin Joseph, Elijah Molden. They have Ifeatu Melifonwu, Eric Stokes. The thing about all these guys are all their average draft positions in this simulation are lower than 28, where the Saints be selected, but none of them are available at 60. So that's where I get to that awkward no man's land type of situation, right? Melifonwu, Stokes, Samuel, Joseph, these guys were barely ever available at 60, and yet their average draft position is like 41, 47, 36, 45. are you willing to over-select due to position? Or if Newsom and Farley are off the board, do you go with just who you have as the best player on your board?
Yeah, I don't think you tie yourself to a position and you get the fifth best if you don't feel like the fifth best is worthy of the 28th pick. I still think your roster is good enough where you don't have to do that. So if one of these guys is close to you or they fall to you, then absolutely.
Elijah Molden, for what it's worth, that's a name that you mentioned. He looks like in this simulation, his average draft position was actually about right at 60. So he would be a name to pay attention for if they don't go core in the first round for a potential second-round pick.
If you wait till 60, are you going to get a starter? That's going to be your question at that position.
I mean, but you've said that, right? Your top 3 picks, rounds 1, 2, and 3, you're expecting.
Yeah. I'm talking
start,
more.
right?
I'm talking more at corner, because could he be a third corner and you consider him a starter in sub packages? You could. At receiver, I think you can get a starter at 60. Can you get a corner starter? Because every position is going to be different. Depending on
for sure.
Like running back, you absolutely can get a starter running back at 60. Can you get a corner? That's going to be the question. If they have one that they like and he falls there, look, absolutely. They thought it was Zach Bond. They thought they had him as like a first round type of guy, and they got him in the third round. So it depends on how you value some of these corners in the draft. Like if Kelvin Joseph, former LSU, transfers to Kentucky, is there at 60. I've seen him everywhere. I've seen him in the top 25. I've seen him a third rounder. I've seen him in the second round. I mean, he's been all over the place.
So in this simulation, he's been available 6 times at 60. So just 6%. So not the highest, but he's got a pretty wide window. 33 to 61 is kind of the window on Joseph. So what do you think? Would you try to wait? Let's say like Newsom and Farley are gone. Do you try to wait on Joseph and see if he gets 260?
Again, it's all going to depend on where you have his value. If you have his value at around there, then yeah, you do wait. And if you have it above there, maybe you have it at 40, you're picking at 28, maybe you do reach right there. If you feel like he's close enough to being a starter where you can get him in the building and make him a starter. So the NFL draft is so weird because everyone assumes they know where someone's going or they have a value on someone because we love mock drafts. We love them. We go to ESPN, Bleacher Report. Our guy Miller, who does his own thing, NFL Draft Scout. Okay, so everybody does their own thing, but it only takes one team. And the old saying is true. Like, if the Denver Broncos don't select Tim Tebow in the first round, who knows where Tim goes? You know what I'm saying? But the Broncos loved him. Josh McDaniels loved him. Brandon Weeden, right? One team fell in love with Weeden.
Brandon Weeden.
Okay, so he's a first-round pick. So
go Pokes.
It does not, you just never know inside of a draft room where somebody has that value. The Saints might have Kelvin Joseph as the 20th best player in this draft.
Yeah, I mean, and that is why all of mock draft season is a bit of whatever. Like, that's why I don't get married to the individual names. I like to use mock drafts and these simulations in terms of range finding, right? What are the names that should be on the radar? So in terms of kind of first round, the dream would be Newsom or Farley, probably for the Saints there at 28. And then after that, I think you got an interesting question to answer about, do you try to wait to 60? Do you trade up in the second round for like a Kelvin Joseph or somebody? If that's not going to cost you too much, you probably got to throw like a, what do you think? Probably throw like a fourth or fifth rounder maybe or something in there.
If you really feel great about the player, I'm not in love with the Saints.
Saints love to trade up.
Trading picks in this draft because I think there's some holes that you need to fill with those draft choices.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, so that was Nick looking at and running the simulations from a cornerback perspective. Larry Holder did something interesting in The Athletic where he plugged Dane Brugler's big board, who he's the Athletics draft guy, into the Pro Football Network draft simulator, and he didn't choose anything. He just ran a 3-round simulation 50 times, and here's what it spit out. 8 times in round number 1, the Saints ended up with Zaven Collins, the linebacker from Tulsa. Right. Another guy who, what's the consensus on him? Is he supposed to be available at 28?
I think he'll be there. I think he's in that 25 to 35 range.
So here's where it gets a bit interesting, though. So Zaven Collins led the way with 8 selections out of the 50. The other one was an edge defender, Jason Owa, from Penn State.
Yeah.
Travis Etienne was next on the list. The Saints taking him 6 times per this simulation. Tied
Travis
for
Etienne. That's very interesting.
Terrace Marshall coming
I've
in
seen
next.
that a bunch. I've seen Terrace Marshall to the Saints a bunch. Now, the Ravens apparently at 27 is where most people like him. But it kind of goes back to our argument. And you mentioned Etienne, you mentioned Marshall. Are the Saints going to say, I've got enough on defense, because teams are going to score in the NFL anyways. I got enough on defense to be able to slow them down enough. I need more offensive weapons for my new quarterback. I need one more big weapon to go with Kamara and to go with Mike Thomas, and I'm going to go offense. That wouldn't surprise me any.
I think that, and people might be saying, well, where are the cornerbacks? I think this is kind of a function of exactly what we talked about. The Saints may be in cornerback no man's land. They're at 28, and so we may have to start looking outside of that. I mean, how about the Etienne though? 6 times. How do you?
Surprising.
I mean, whatever. It's an algorithm, so who knows what's logic it's using to get there. It's a computer program. But like, how would you even combine him and Alvin Kamara? Is there too much crossover in the Venn diagram for that to make sense? Because like Mark Ingram and Kamara make sense.
I was about to say. I just think they're
styles.
I think they'd be too similar. Not that they're the same back, but they'd be pretty similar in size and different things that they could do. So that one doesn't make sense. Now, if you're going to go offense, I think a receiver, another receiving option would make sense. Running back, you can find a lot of places in the draft.
Interestingly, they had the Saints. The computer also had the Saints trading up 3 times to select Rashad Bateman from Minnesota.
Who don't do that?
So I guess the point is, though, they do look to value receiver. To your point, don't trade up.
Don't trade up for a receiver.
No,
I think there's receivers in this draft.
I agree.
Bateman had a really good year in 2019, took a giant step back in 2020, opted out, opted in, opted back out again. When he played, it wasn't great. Really struggled with physical corners. I wouldn't love that.
For what it's worth, they also had Greg Newsom twice on this list. It looks like maybe he fell there. And then another guy twice, Najee Harris. Now, speaking of contrasting styles, I feel like you could make a Najee Harris-Alvin Kamara combination work quite well. But do you want to go running back in round number 1?
Yeah, it's different. Like, so, your bigger back. Now, Najee Harris is not just your typical big back. He is super athletic.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's a bigger contrast than it would be if it was Etienne and Alvin Kamara.
Yes,
for sure.
Exactly.
But still, I just don't think running back. I mean, Latavius Murray is like that type of player. Like, that's what you need to be the second fiddle to Alvin Kamara. Like, that works perfectly, and you don't use a first-round pick on it.
So as far as that second-round pick at 60, I love the first name on here. 4 out of the 50 times, the majority, the pick that hit the most was Elijah Moore at 60. That
if you can
could
get
be
him
pretty
at 60,
sexy.
Yeah, that's a steal.
I mean, bruh, that speed, Jameis Winston's arm, like we said. Now, I don't think Taysom Hill throws a deep ball worth a damn. If you remember last year, his deep balls seem to sit up there for about 30 minutes before they come down. But like Jameis Winston with Elijah Moore, and you got Traquan stretching the field. Maybe that opens up more stuff for Michael Thomas finally under the middle. He can get back to doing his wet work. Deontay Harris is a speedster. Like, you would have some fast weapons on offense. I would love that. No other names in this segment really jump out for me. They do go Aaron Robinson, a corner from Central Florida, twice on this list. They go Kellen Mond twice, which was maybe a bit interesting. Yeah? Huh? How do you even go a little Kellen Mond on the Saints? I wonder what Sean Payton thinks about him. If Sean Payton likes him, there's a good chance. You're not a fan?
There's tools there, but we have seen him play against LSU, I think, a couple too many times. Even this last year, when LSU's defense was historically bad, he struggled.
Well, then how about this for quarterback?
Think about that. He was like the only quarterback that struggled against LSU's defense.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair. How about this then for quarterback in round number 3? The most picked player is actually Davis Mills, the Stanford quarterback. Cat from my high school, Great Atlanta Christian
Yeah, I was about to
School.
say, you know more about Davis Mills than anyone.
Cat that tore. I actually don't know anything about him because I don't know anything
He
about
just
my
went
high
to your
school.
school?
I just know that he went to my school and he's dated my friend's little sister. But I think I do know that he like tore his ACLs twice, so it's one of those things where he has huge potential. The film he has is nice, but it's very upset with injuries and whatnot. But like in
He looks like a
terms of,
Stanford quarterback.
he does look like a Stanford quarterback. He's also a beast on the sticks. You don't want to see him uncaught. He's an animal, from what I've heard. But I think if you're gonna go quarterback, I know we talked about how thin this roster is, and maybe you want to fill out the top 3 rounds with players that you think can play immediately, but a guy whose overall value has been dinged maybe underneath what it should be because of injuries, I think that does represent a kind of exciting potential play for the Saints there.
Again, if you value him to be a first-round talent, but the injuries are setting you back, and you feel like it's worthy of a third-round pick to sit behind a couple of quarterbacks because they don't have these long-term deals, because Taysom's deal, we kind of know what that is, and also Taysom's role is completely different than that of a normal quarterback. Jameis on a short-term deal here, and then, okay, you can talk me into that. But to spend anything above a third-round pick on a quarterback, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, no. If it was between like the Davis Mond in 3 or Kellen Mond in 2, I would definitely take Davis Mills in the 3rd.
Yeah, and Alex Anderson in the chat, why would anyone trust a Jimbo quarterback, I guess, in the NFL? When you look at it, he's had him playing really well in college football, but once they transition to the NFL, it has not been a great success rate.
That's fine. That's fair. Last thing that jumped out to me from this excellent Larry Holder piece in round number 3, one of the now the guys that are right behind Davis Mills, it's an edge defender in Quincy Roche from Miami. You have Tylan Wallace, wide receiver from Oklahoma State. Caden Stearns, a safety from Texas, makes sense. But how about Tyler Shelvin coming in next on the list? Picked 3 times. I think he's probably
I'll be honest with you, like, I don't really have a book on where he'll be selected.
But I mean, when you're talking about the Saints losing Malcolm Brown, losing that run stuffer.
That's a hell of a football player. I just don't know how teams value him with him sitting out, with the issues he's had with his weight that have been in the public. You just don't know where he's valued. Like ESPN right now has him as the 9th best defensive tackle in the draft, 110th overall. Like, I think he's better than that because I've seen him be dominant on a dominant football team.
110th overall. I mean, where the Saints are selecting in round 3, though, you're getting into that range, right? I mean, I think they're selecting in the 90s or maybe the late 80s. So, look, the Malcolm Brown, I think that might be a bigger departure than people are realizing when it comes to the run defense and how elite it's been. So, a little fun draft talk there, kind of zeroing in on some names that you should be looking out for on Saints draft day. Maybe some LSU guys. So both Terrace Marshall and Tyler Shelvin
we'll see.
Entering the chat. In terms of, does Kelvin Joseph count? Is an LSU guy?
When it comes to the Saints selecting LSU guys, we'll take it.
We'll see. All right. Coming up next here at OTB, more OTB. Keep it locked.